Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Kevin McDonald, and you're listening to Positive Talk right here on the Brushwood Media Network and elsewhere. We've got a great show for you today. I know, I say that every time, but I mean it sometimes. And I mean it this time, absolutely for sure. First of all, Rochelle is with us. She's a little under the weather, but she's fighting through it and is going to do the best she can. So, Rochelle, how are you, my dear?
I am pushing through, like you said, Kevin. Just happy to be here and be involved with this conversation with Rebecca, our guest today, helping women to feel empowered and connect back to themselves and feel like they can be authentically themselves in a healthy version. And I think that is beyond more important than it probably ever has been. So thank you so much for being here with us, Rebecca. How are you today?
I am so good, and that was so sweet. Thank you.
You're
I'm super
welcome.
excited to have this conversation about you guys. And I'm also super excited that, I mean, Rochelle obviously gets it, but I feel like Kevin gets it too. So hopefully we can sprinkle some of that through the rest of the conversation.
Yeah.
Well, I've been fortunate enough to talk to a lot of women in the course of this show and basically in my life. And what I found is that a lot of women spend their entire life. And if this resonates with you, you need to stay here and watch this show for the entire hour because it's going to be important for you. If you spend your life being of service to others, and then you do not have a chance or have the time to take care of yourself. You can't take care of others unless you take care of yourself. And one of the things that Rebecca does is she helps women live their best life and learn that number one, their best life is worth it and that they're able to do it. And then she gives you tools on how to put it together. And she's a wonderful coach, and she's a great gal. So Rebecca, by the way, I told everybody before, that's my second favorite name in the entire world. So it's great to have you here, and thank you for being the source for women who, by the way, are my favorite sex. I'm a guy, but I like women better than men because for whatever reason, women get it more than men do, and instead of circling each other and saying, I'm tougher than you and I'm smarter than you and I've got more money than you and my car's bigger than yours and my wife's prettier than yours and all that stuff. And thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm like, I'm not sure what to say to that. I'm curious where this goes, though.
Well, and I want to know, to start with, give us a little background about you, how you ended up doing what you're doing, and what was your motivating factor?
Oh, man. So this is going to be the plot twist that you never saw coming, but I actually became a life coach because I was an Airbnb host and I hosted people in my home. So,
oh, wow.
I have always been, yeah, always been in leadership positions. I've always led teams of women, and I used to be super, super guarded, and I was the mean girl too. So I've done a complete 180 from that, thank God. And when I was I'm trying to remember, like probably about not quite 10 years ago, I was working from home, remote position, single mom, and wanted to supplement my income, ended up doing some research and stumbled on Airbnb at the time. And I saw that and I was like, I could do that piece of cake. And I didn't have a separate house, but I had a spare bedroom. And so I ended up hosting people in my home and we shared all the common spaces. So the kitchen, the living room, the deck. And just found through that entire experience my ability to connect with complete strangers of all walks of life and all over the world, and to be able to have conversation with them and hold space for them, and even to challenge their perspective sometimes. I think that's a big thing, as we get so caught up in our own experience, it's hard to see anything beyond that. But when other people are there and with no agenda, because who am I, some random stranger you're staying with, coming in and being able to pose reflective questions to them just naturally, really showed me what I was put here to do. And I heard the term life coach at some point, and the rest is history.
That's brilliant.
It
That's
is.
brilliant. Because go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, no, it's just so good because it showed that you were able to connect with yourself as well, not just everybody around you, but it helped you build a relationship with yourself. And then the universe was like, okay, that's what we've been waiting for. And now we're willing to give you this blessing so you can move forward in your life and spread that through other women and through other people. Um, I have a question for you that's come to my head. If you would have looked back at maybe like 10 years ago at your younger self and told her you were doing everything you're doing now, what do you think her reaction would have been?
Oh man, I don't think she would have been surprised, but I think she would have tried to figure out how we got here. I think that's the part where she would have been like, I don't not believe you, and how. So yeah, that's what I think she would think for sure. But I mean, yeah, from that moment, I knew
Uh-huh.
this was my purpose. There's no denying it. Good, bad,
Yeah.
ugly, all of it, hardship. Like, I wouldn't do anything else because I know this is my purpose. You can't convince me otherwise.
Yeah.
And by the way, this is coming from a recovering mean girl herself.
Yep. Which is double powerful because I was also a mean
1000%.
girl.
Mm, yeah.
She
Yep.
she was she grew up being a mean girl, and now the fun part is, and she tells me this story, and I'll tell it for you, Rochelle, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but now people come up to her and say, "You're so nice. How did you get to be so nice? You were such a female dog relative thing that you
Uh-huh.
would call people." Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and did you have the same experience, Rebecca? Because I think from my perspective, I realized all it had to do with was me loving myself. Since I hated myself and everything around me every single day from start to finish, I wasn't necessarily like it's mean in like drama type of way. I was straight mean to your face. I would say crazy things to people and I was very aggressive. And when I realized that
Hmm.
I was also hurting me by doing that, I kind of just I really don't even know when it happened. It just one day it was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore, you know?
Hmm. Yeah. When
So
I think
that's
it,
what
like,
happened
for
for me.
me, it came from a place of, oh, sorry, came from
No,
a
you're
place
good.
of survival. Like, I didn't have the easiest upbringing, and
Yeah.
was really kind of alienated from the kids at school. I went to a really small school. It was really cliquey. I never felt like I fit in there, but it's funny. I always felt like I belonged to myself. And I give credit to that a ton to my grandparents because they loved me so unconditionally. And I can remember just being around them and observing and just taking up space and not being told who and not to be. And then I would get in school and it was like the complete opposite. And so, especially as a teenager, like, I ended up carrying that into my everyday life and was just going through some things at the time. And so my meanness was very, I was stupid smart. And I mean that like wicked smart. And then I also had a super fast tongue. And I would use my, like, I would say anything with the biggest smile on my face to intentionally confuse people, because it was like I got to be both sides of myself somehow, which
Yeah.
now I'm like, oh, girl, what were you doing? You were
Yeah.
so not great. And there's people that could testify to that, but it was at a point where I realized that I got sick of being alone. And unless you really let people in and create that, like the vulnerability, that's where it starts, right? Like being vulnerable,
Right.
trying something different, letting people in. And instead of like saving the day or pushing them away all the time, like you've just got to try something else if you want people to be close to you. So that's where the transition started for me.
Beautiful.
And Sam, well, he's a regular for us, and he has a question for you, which is greetings from the somewhere the slums in Kenya. Samuel, and I can't pronounce his last name, but he the question he has for us is: do you have a program for empowering women, teenage mothers, more so? Um,
Mm, yeah.
Go ahead,
So,
Rebecca.
not specifically teenage mothers. Yeah, but honestly, I offer my services to not just women. Like I work mainly with women because that's near and dear to my heart, but I am willing to work with anybody. You just have to reach out and get a discovery call. And if you can't work with me one on one, then I have plenty of podcasts you can listen to. I have different resources and other ways that you can tap into the things that I do too if you're not able to work with me one on one. But yeah, teenage mothers, oh yeah, they need some love too, that's for sure. That's probably the most important time for them and their kids.
Yes.
You know what the hardest problem about being a teenage mother seems to me to be? That they've got a boyfriend who's a
Hmm.
teenage boy. And he may not have been his brain may not be fully formed yet, and he's doing crazy, stupid stuff. Does that make you ring a bell with either of you?
100%. But I've also seen the opposite of that, Kevin. I really have. And I think it really depends on the person and especially their background. I used to do this with only kids, and I've learned now it's the same as adults. When I see somebody acting or being a certain way and they have certain values of the way that they were brought up, and maybe is not so much in a positive way, I always wonder what were their parents like and what were their parents like, because a lot of times these qualities that we bring into our adulthood from our childhood, I don't think we're really ever aware of. And when we talk about having that awareness, I think can be a shock to people because it's a little bit confusing to try and wrap your head around. Um, but some people really they have really good families and very good parents, and I think they adapt to the lifestyle well. So we always wish the best, and we're here to provide help, which is exactly what Rebecca is doing. So thank you for being willing to really just work with anybody and open your heart up to helping them in the way that they need. I think that that's very important.
Definitely.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Rebecca.
it's funny, like as you're talking, I even think about the fact that it, like these days, because of social media and our access and our exposure and the bombardment of information, like you can still have a great family and still be inundated with things that shape you in a different way. And so that's not
Yes,
the only
very true.
determinant, but it's like more important now than ever to understand that you really never know what somebody's circumstances are or what they've gone through or what's happened or how they're feeling, and especially when we're younger, right? Like
Exactly.
it takes, I mean, we used to think that women's brains or girls' brains stopped developing in the mid 20s, and now there's more research coming out saying it might be into like the late 20s, 30-ish, which is similar for guys too. And so when you think about the parts of our brains that aren't developed, and as adults, especially if you are interacting with somebody or you have an experience with somebody who's younger, it's like we forget that all of those dots aren't connected yet. And we make, the response wrong or the why bigger than the what they need right now or what's most important, which is empathy and connection and love and just the ability to be themselves. And that doesn't mean letting them act however they want to. You get to have boundaries, but when we model healthy boundaries, that's what shows other people how to do the same. So yeah, it's just a
Exactly.
really dynamic, nuanced process, no matter what and no matter who.
Yep.
Rebecca, when we come back from this break, which we need to take real quick, it's just a minute, everybody, so just relax. But I want to talk about boundaries because I think boundaries are a really cool way for people to figure out who they really are and to not be the people pleaser that most women were brought up to be, to take care of everybody else and not themselves. And you have to set boundaries in order to live your best life. At least that's my opinion. I'd love your opinion, and we'll get it when we come right back.
You became a real estate agent for freedom, success, and real momentum. So why are you still stuck waiting for closings to save you? I'm Ophir Adar, founder of Real Momentum, and I help agents like you become seven-figure earners. My first client that I coached, brand new agent, made $250,000 back in 2006. What's the secret? You feed your white wolf. That's the part of you that's bold and unstoppable and a closer and able to build rapport quickly. So click Get Listings at Real Momentum and let's unleash your real estate potential.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Burchelle. She's right there. She's actually in the dark, not figuratively, but literally. And my name is Kevin McDonald, and we have Rebecca Thomas with us. She's a life coach, and she works predominantly with women because they're smarter than the rest of us, and so and I had to laugh.
Your words,
giggle
not
to
mine.
myself. Yeah, I had to giggle to myself because you were wicked smart when you were a kid and you had a really quick tongue. You're the kind of girl that I always never talk to because they were smarter than me and they could dress me down in like 2 seconds flat, and I didn't want to go deal with that. But in any event, I wanted to talk to you about boundaries because boundaries are so. I don't know that people really understand when we say, oh, you got to have good boundaries, what that really means. Can you kind of give us your description of what a solid, good, progressive, positive boundaries are?
I will defer this one to Prentice Hemphill because she has, or they, I'm not sure actually of their pronouns, but they have an amazing quote that says, boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and myself at the same time. And I think when you think about any boundary, that's the point. It's, I can be me and you can be you, and we can still meet in the middle and tell each other what isn't okay. But that's what actually allows each of us to show up as ourselves. And I think that's the most beautiful way to think of it. And I think a lot of times we overthink boundaries or we create walls instead of boundaries. And sometimes we need walls, but it's almost like we've gotten to this place of, first of all, I think because mental health is being prioritized so much and normalized so much now, we're in this discovery phase of like what a boundary is and how it feels and how do you set it and how does it play out and what are the dynamics and how do you manage them and and just you could go on and on and on. But eventually I feel like we're going to hit the sweet spot where we're going to understand what the purpose really is, which is the quote, right? Like the distance at which I can love you and myself at the same time. And with that, I think we can take a lot of the overthinking out of it and a lot of the managing both sides of the street with it, mine and yours, and just learn how to communicate what isn't okay, and not in some long, ongoing, dramatic, holier than thou explanation, but just this is what is okay. This is what isn't okay. Where do we go from there?
Oh, that's brilliant. Can you kind of expand on that a little bit because there's some folks that don't quite get what you're saying, if that makes any sense at all. Because
Okay.
and when we are establishing boundaries, are we talking about
Mhm.
romantic relationship boundaries or friendship boundaries or work relationship boundaries or all of that? Or and are they different or are they the same? And I know that there are men out there that'll say, no, the relationship is different. We don't need boundaries here. You know what I mean?
Right, which is why you have different drama in your relationship than you do at work because you treat it differently.
Exactly.
Really good point. A really good point. So,
So,
so expand on that.
so yeah, so boundaries, I mean, for me, it's really simplifying it, not overthinking it across the board. And it's funny because as you went through that whole list of where you can set boundaries, the one part you left out was setting boundaries with yourself. And I think that's the most important part is how you set boundaries with yourself. And I know for a lot of people that doesn't really hit their radar, they don't really understand what that means. So, for example, when I really started to realize where I was compromising myself, and not because anybody else was demanding that I do that, some of it was conditioning, yes, but I get the final say. It's still me, it's my actions, it's my life. And so I really started to look at the things that would chip away mostly at my energy. And when I started to look at that, it allowed me to see the things that I did, whether it was an action, an interaction, whether it was a behavior, and really start to see how those impacted me on a day to day basis. So, for instance, when I didn't used to prioritize really good sleep, if I didn't get enough sleep, my mind didn't work well. I was more emotional. I was more reactive. And not that emotions are bad, but there's a difference between letting them control you and not letting them control you. And so the next day when I would wake up, I would realize not only those things, but then I was also more prone to overeating because I just wasn't feeling like I had the capacity to control that. And so it really started to help me understand the different things I was doing on a day to day basis that were compromising my own integrity. And that's where I started, was setting boundaries with myself. But it even goes into that whole mean girl dynamic and shifting that, because it was like, okay, when I do this thing, what's the thing that happens on the other side of that? What's the consequence? How does this play out? And when I would pay attention to that, if it was something that I didn't like, I still had agency to be able to change that. But I also, that meant paying attention to what influenced it as well. I still had control over that. So that's where I really started. But then to be able to set boundaries with other people, I mentioned very briefly, like managing both sides of the street. And I think a lot of times, especially as women, we're taught to take so much of what other people, like consider their feelings, what's going to happen, how is this going to play out? And we spend so much time doing that, that if we just said how we felt truthfully and not being a jerk about it, but just this is what or isn't okay, and then allow the other participant, the other part of the dynamic, to be able to show up and communicate the same thing, then it becomes less of a power struggle and more of a conversation. And with conversations, you can bridge understanding, and it becomes less about you're wrong, I'm right, and more about, okay, where do we each stand on this, and how can we meet in the middle if we're going to meet in the middle?
Does it require somebody to be a little self-reflecting, to think about how they've been acting and who they are and stuff? Because a lot of people say, "Oh, that it just happens that way," and they don't think about why they're doing the things that they do, which is why they need a
Mm-hmm.
coach, quite frankly.
Yeah, definitely. But I think like the very first thing, going back to that setting boundaries yourself, like the easiest place to start, you don't have to be completely self-aware. You don't have to, nobody's ever going to completely understand themselves. Let's just be honest. But at the same time, you can pay attention to the biggest indicator, which is, how do I feel? What are the emotions that are coming up? Do I want to have those emotions or not? And that's not making emotions right, wrong, good, or bad. But emotions, especially when it's like resentment, frustration, all those kinds of emotions, those are usually indicators where your boundaries are being compromised, and you're usually the one allowing them to be compromised. But it usually is from a place of learned helplessness where you don't even understand. But once you can start to pay attention to, I feel like that. Do I want to feel like that? Just sit with it, let that recurring theme, start paying attention to it. Where's it coming from? Is it a person, a place, a thing, a time of day, what I'm eating? Like, what is it? And then you can start to narrow it down and start to take action on that thing and change it if you want to. So that's a really simple place to start if you don't have a ton of self-awareness yet.
Be still, my foolish heart. Does that mean, Rochelle, that you can control your emotions and the things of the going on with you? Is that even possible?
When I realized that, I went through a lot of emotions. I went through a lot of different states of being, and learning through it continuously kept changing me over and over and over again, because I was realizing more of not even anything external, but how much I was letting affect me. And it was really frustrating to try to control it, because I'd had my body and my human self were kind of fighting this higher power in me that knew that I didn't have to react to something, and I didn't have to make it a huge deal, and I didn't need to go out of my way to overthink. I think that was one thing. Was self-sabotaging myself in so many ways, and it made me actually kind of sad to have this realization, because I saw the way I was treating myself, and realized that I had responsibility for
Mm.
why my life was the way that it was. And that was kind of heavy to come to terms with. So there was a lot of breakdown that had to happen, but the rebuild is so beautiful. And I was going to ask you about this, Rebecca, because you mentioned something that made me think of it earlier, is when you had this realization of how you were living, and you could change it, but either way it was going to be difficult. And I've been focused on giving the advice a lot of, you choose your hard. So what do you think of that?
Oh man, you choose your heart. I think yes, but I think we live in a day and age where so much is hard. Like
Yeah,
truly, there's a
right.
lot of things that seem scary and unpredictable right now. And when you are stuck in fear, right, survival mode, it's
Yep.
it's not as easy as just, well, I should just be able to. And so there's different levels of hard. Can you choose your
Yeah,
hard? Absolutely, but you have to create a sense of safety first, and that's
right.
easier said than done a lot of times, especially if you're in positions or in spaces, what your family and your friend circle look like. If a lot of them aren't self-aware, if a lot of them aren't doing the personal work and trying to grow personally, and not from a place of fixing themselves, but just creating positive traction, it can be really hard to move through that. Not impossible by any means,
Yes.
but
Much
again,
harder
to
though, I
your
do
point, like
agree.
choosing the hard. Yeah, it's all hard. It's all hard. Being stuck here is hard, but our wiring tells us it's familiar though. So it makes it less hard. And I call BS on that it's not that it's any less hard. It's just the hard that we're used to. And so when you start to do things in a new way, it is choosing a different hard. So it's what's going to bring me, the benefit or the better outcome, or, quality of life or depth of relationships, whether it's with me, myself, friend, family, whatever that looks like. So I think you're definitely that choose your hard is it's a pretty good indicator. Like everything's going to be hard. So which one comes with what you want? Do you want what you have? If not,
Yes.
look to changing it.
Very
That
good.
that's that sounds like a T-shirt. Choose your hard, but I'm not sure if that might get misinterpreted by some people. I don't know. What do you think, Rochelle?
I think that we need to just add something right to the end of it to, um I wish I could remember word for word what Rebecca just said, because that would be perfect. It's choose your hard. You said something about um doing it in a healthy space of boundaries or something like that, because there are
Like what
multiple
has the
levels.
benefit? Is it
Yes.
how you want to feel? Is it what you want? Like what do you actually want on the other side of that? And is this hard actually leading to that? Because if not, break up with it.
I like that. Break up with it.
And by the way, we're talking with Rebecca Thomas. And Rebecca, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, what is your website that they can get a hold of you at?
Yeah, my website is marieofvenus.com. So it's MARIEOF as in Frank, Venus.com.
And when we come back from our halftime break, I want to ask you, what in the heck does your website title mean? And also, I would also like to discuss the difference and your perspective on the difference between reacting to something and responding to something, because I believe there's a distinct difference between the two. And we need to take our halftime break, and we will be right back with Rebecca Thomas and Brachelle, who's she's in the dark. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Brachelle. She's right there. And my name is Kevin McDonald. And Rebecca Thomas is with us. She's a life coach, and she is also a B&B owner. Do you still do the B&B thing?
Not currently, but it's literally only been 4 months. So yeah, outside of that, it was like 8 years. So it hasn't been that long.
Well, and so I wanted to ask you, first of all, explain the title of your website and what that means. I know it means something to you.
Okay. So yeah, it does. And fun fact, if you forget the story or if you want to hear it again, there's actually a little clip from another podcast I was on that's on one of the pages that elaborates on that, because I've had so many people go, okay, Rebecca Thomas, Marie of Venus, make it make sense. And so Marie is my middle name. And I also had a romantic partner. He was my forever guy who tragically passed away suddenly about 10 years ago. And he affectionately called me Marie. And he was the person that really helped me fall in love with myself, accept myself, really modeled healthy romantic relationship for the first time in my life. And so there's just so much of who I am that is because of who he was for me and who he taught me to be for myself. So that's where Marie comes from. And then Venus is the goddess of love. And so I am Marie of love.
That's brilliant. Brachelle, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. First of all, I have to say I'm so sorry for your loss. That is, um, I loved how even just talking about it, you made such an honest beauty out of it, of admitting that this person helped me find myself and find who I was. And I would go to say that he is probably on the other side cheering for you and so proud of you and guiding you through all of this, because if you wouldn't have been able to realize that and be who you are now, then
Mm-hmm.
I mean, none of that would have taken effect. And I think it goes to show like how we handle things and what we make of it. Because at any given point, you could have just chose that was going to shut you down, and if anything, be more angry out of it. So
Mm-hmm.
how was that different in that situation that you decided I'm not going to handle this the way I usually would have?
Well, I would say that is how I usually handle things, which
Oh, good.
maybe I'm an anomaly. I don't know. I had an aunt who used to call me Pollyanna. And it's not in a way that I pretend that somebody isn't as hard as it is, right? Totally aged myself. But it's very much, I do believe, and sometimes it's not what somebody needs to hear in the moment, and it feels like complete BS, but I believe that everything happens for a reason, at least for me, and that everything that I've been through, no matter how hard or challenging it was, it's contributed to who I am, and I truly love who I am. And so when I lost him and when he passed away so suddenly, a huge piece that came of that, that's such a big part of my coaching and who I am as a person now, is he was my confidant, and he was the first person that I was able to have conversations about things that really upset me, not just between him and I, but just in everyday life. And instead of it being dramatic, or instead of it being complaining or just focusing on and spiraling into a problem, he would just hold space for me. And when I lost him, I lost all of that at the time I needed it most in my life. Because when you lose your best friend, your confidant, your romantic partner, and then there's this void and you're deeply grieving on top of that too, what do you do with that? And so in order to get it back, I became that, like literally chose to become that, because otherwise I wasn't going to have it. And it's such a beautiful gift, not even just for myself, because I can hold space for myself just as much as I can hold space for other people. And it actually probably allows me to hold more space for other people because I can do that. But yeah, that wouldn't be a part of who I am if it wasn't for that whole experience. So I'm just so grateful to that, and the fact that I didn't let my heart close, and not just romance, but also in general. Like, you can let something like that harden you, but for what? So your life can pass you by and you can just be bitter. I don't want to live with that kind of anchor.
Exactly. That's
And
powerful.
by the way, Rochelle, you said that beautifully, because I believe, and well, I know this to be true, that he is extraordinarily proud of you and the person that you are, and he wants you to be extraordinarily happy while you're here.
Nope. No worries there. I'm very happy. Joy is something I choose every day. Like, you don't know if you could beat it out of me, which hopefully no one ever tries, but
Well, and I want to talk about joy in a minute, but first of all, I want you to explain to me the difference in your world between being reacting to something and responding to something. There's a big difference in my energetically in those two
yeah.
words. There's a big difference.
hmm I mean, the biggest thing that comes to mind, and this isn't going to make the most sense, so I'll definitely expand after this, but it's whether or not you give your power away. Like, when you're reacting to something, it's more of this default cycle, and that gets tricky because response can become a cycle too. But it's pieces of the dynamic that are influencing what you're actually going through, and instead of retaining a sense of being able to like look at it objectively while still acknowledging what you're feeling, but again, kind of going back to that boundaries piece where it's like I still have agency, I still get a say. And so it's not from this place of helplessness or trying to prove something or trying to control something. It's literally being able to stay in your agency and navigate the situation with that.
I've heard the term agency quite a little bit, but I'm not sure I understand it completely. Can you help me, please?
Okay. Sure. So it's just that you get a say. You get the say, you get the last word. You have power in how the dynamic is shaped, how your response to it is shaped. And you decide whether or not you do something with that. So I think a lot of times when we're reacting to something, we forget, like, we're giving that power away. We're letting something outside of us have power. And it could be a person, it could be a dynamic, whatever. But when we stay in our agency, it comes from a place of power, and not power as dominance, but power as in who I am and what I want or need matters too, and being able to stake a flag in the ground with that.
That makes perfect sense. Now I got another question for you, and that is that why do you think it is that so many people
Shoot.
make an art out of trying to take your power, trying to lord over you, try and get what they what to try and get what they want to get out of you for their own reasons without consideration of your reasoning or your boundaries that you set. That happens to me all the time, doesn't it, Rochelle?
Yep, and me too. So I'd love some advice.
And it's so interesting to me that you put so much emphasis on the people trying to take our power away as if we're not the ones that have the agency to decide whether or not they take the power away.
Oh, I got an answer for that. You ready? You ready for this? Okay. So
Sure.
in my world, I'm a very open person, and I'm also a very giving person, and I also invite people in based upon what they have told me, not necessarily how they've been
Uh-huh.
acting, but what they've told me. And then when I make that decision to allow them in, and then it starts to change into more of a negative, I'm going to take this from you, or I'm going to do this for my own purposes because I can. And that's what happens. So I have to maintain a strong presence and agency and boundaries, because that's happened. And maybe it has to do with the fact that I'm on the radio, and I'm doing podcasts and stuff, and I've got a large audience. But I think this happens to everybody that is successful at one thing or another. People, it's those lousy people that keep on trying to take. No, I'm just kidding. But Michelle, maybe you can help me explain
Wait,
me
but can we
better.
stop for a second though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Kevin, you already know the answer because you literally said it.
Yep. I was just gonna say that.
Do you have any idea what you said?
As usual, I said a whole bunch of stuff in a short period of time, but I think it's
Any
I,
clue
is
as
it
to what that one piece might be?
that I allow? Is that it?
No.
Oh,
Nope.
Oh.
You're making
what?
decisions based on what people tell you, even though that you can see their actions are actually contradicting what they tell you.
I know. That's why I need a coach. That's why
I know you know.
it's a remarkable
The
thing, and that's
question
and
is,
that's
what's your secondary gain from that?
say that again.
I said, so the question is, what's your secondary gain from that? What do you get by pretending that you don't see the boundaries that you need to set or the actions that you're taking, and then you instead ignore those red flags, ignore those boundaries based on what they're telling you, even though you know the real gold is what they're doing. So what do you have to gain? Not necessarily positive, but what's the secondary gain that keeps you responding to those situations in that way versus setting healthier boundaries, especially when you already know what's up?
Well, now we get into the deep psychoanalysis of the talk show host, because I want to please everybody, and I want everybody to get along, and I want and so I'm very hopeful. But the reality is that there are not very many people that get me, and I get them, and Rochelle's one of those. She's become very close to me because she is and she gets it. But at the same time, I would be devastated if she turned out to be a mean girl to me and stuff like she used to be.
No, Kevin, I'm past that. And I think if she ever came out in front of you, it would probably be to defend your name. So don't you worry about that.
So, but and that's my only point, is that sometimes you have to be careful and look at what people do, not what they're telling you. Is that decent advice, or what advice would you give if I was your client and we were having this conversation, which we need to have, but I need to take a 30-second break, and then we'll be right back, and then you can help me get out of my own way, because sometimes I'm in my own way and it's not good. So we'll be right back. Are you looking for a powerful way to grow your brand while making a real difference? Well, Positive Talk is the perfect platform to align your message with inspiration, hope, and meaningful conversations. By sponsoring Positive Talk, your brand will reach an engaged audience that values positivity and connection. People who want to support companies that share their values. Take this opportunity to showcase your business in a space that uplifts, inspires, and creates lasting impact. Don't wait. Email me, kevin@kmmedia.pro today to learn how you can partner with us and spread positivity while growing your brand. And welcome back to the Kevin McDonald's coaching session with with Rebecca Thomas. She's helping me negotiate through life, and Rochelle's trying too, but it takes more than one, I'm afraid. And by the way, if you want to touch bases with Rebecca Thomas, how do they do that, Rebecca? The best way?
You can reach out to me at mariavenus.com and send me a message, or I would love for you to come visit me also at Maria Venus on Substack.
Oh, very good. Very good indeed. Okay, lay it on me. Give me some counseling here, because as Rochelle would say, you need to get some counseling.
Okay, so can you ask me the question again?
The question is, I am, excuse me, it's the president calling, but I'll call him back later. The question is that I have been a person of service my entire life. I care for people deeply. I really want to have a wonderful experience with everyone. And so I take people not only at their word, I take people at what I would perceive to be their best word and their best life. And some people are disappoint you because they have a different agenda. It's not that they're bad people; they just have a different agenda. And because I'm giving and I try to be loyal and stuff, that I let things go so far, and then I have to bring boundaries into it and stop it, because it's not getting any better, and what has been said is not what's being done. Does that make any sense?
I don't really feel like it was a question, but I think I got the gist of it.
Well, the question was, does that make any sense?
I mean, it makes total sense. I see it all the time. So there's that.
Oh, good.
So congratulations, you're human.
That's okay. I get it, but
That should not be surprising.
yeah, no, it really isn't. It really isn't. I bet I'm a little older than the two of you. As a matter of fact, I think I could be two of you combined. As a matter of fact, but in any event, but we're talking with Rebecca Thomas, and you are delightful. By the way,
Aw, thank you.
don't you think so, Michelle?
Energy meets
I
energy.
do. Yes, I do. I was just gonna say, I mean, it's the one question that I haven't asked you, I think that kind of floats around in my head with a lot of guests we have is as you've started this work with so many different people in so many situations, what do you think or that you've seen is one of the main things people struggle with the most, and why?
Mm.
Do we
Oh
have a
my
couple of
gosh, you want me to
hours, I
narrow it
think?
down to one thing?
No, just
Right.
just an example
I
of
think one
something.
of Oh, no, I can give you easy examples. I think one example is the era of individualism that we're in, where we've gone from a place of strength and safety used to be in the tribe, right? Like when we had these smaller groupings, nobody was moving nationally, internationally across state borders, and we lived in these smaller communities, and you knew the person that you got your eggs from, and you knew the people that lived on your block, and you borrowed sugar from the woman next door, like all of those things. We knew people. We weren't so busy. Doing all these things that we tell ourselves we need to, which I also call BS on that. And we've gotten so caught up in all of the things that we're trying to pursue that we've forgotten to be in relationship with the people around us. And so I think that's a huge thing, because with healthy relationships, there's challenge, there's support, there's love. You can have people hold space for you and vice versa. You can run things by them without without them telling you you're wrong. And I mean, sometimes you do need to hear when you're wrong, but we've given away so much of our power, and we're constantly bombarded with how we should be by social media and everything else, and by what we're seeing modeled every place else, that we've forgotten to be in touch with who we are inside. So we're giving away that power. We've lost our intuition. We've lost our ability to trust ourselves because we're so busy chasing everything that we're told we should be, that we have no idea who we are. And if I can't know who I am, how am I supposed to know who you are? Like, if I know how to sit with myself and figure out who I am, how am I going to have the time, the patience, the awareness, the presence to be able to do that with somebody else? So we're losing relationship with each other. And I think that's a huge piece of it, because with that, like I said, you're missing the challenge, the accountability, the ability to grow together, but also have that support system without having to outsource decisions to other people or feel like you're responsible for it all. And I think we live in a day and age where we're conditioned to feel we are responsible for it all, as if it doesn't still take a village.
Yep. Very good point.
And that's why a lot of us, I personally see, I have a coach, and I personally think that everybody needs to have a coach, because you can see things in our blind spot, or blind spots, as the case may be, that we don't see ourselves. And you can ask intelligent questions like, why do you say that? Why do you think that way? What do you really mean? To make us think a little bit more about what we just said versus, and how, because our significant others, unless you're very lucky, and it sounds to me like you were very fortunate, most of the time our significant others don't have a clue what's going on behind the facade or behind what we're actually saying, and they don't have the training to ask intelligent questions about what you're really feeling. And also, you might not want to tell your significant other what you're really feeling, because it may involve them in some matter or form. So do you agree that having a coach is a really, really important aspect of life?
I'm like, who are you asking? Because I'm going to say yes.
Well, no, I'm asking you, Rebecca.
Okay, yeah. No, I do. And it's for all the things that you were talking about. But I think it's also, I also think that we live in a day and age, and I feel like from my experience, I have also seen that women or seem in general, scared to hurt somebody else's feelings or say the hard thing. I think that's been something that we have turned into. I don't think it's always been that way. In fact, I see, people of my mother's generation, even now, but over the years growing up, even I saw the opposite. And I think we've gotten to such an age where we are scared to say the hard thing or call something out or talk about, more difficult topics, because we're either afraid to rock the boat, or, who knows what else. And so we avoid them. But then when we avoid them, we not only miss so much context, but we miss the messy middle too. And that coaches can be a space where we can start to explore those things again that are more neutral, where you can actually start to build that self-trust again. And there's less risk, because it's not family, it's not friends, but then you also start to get back in touch with those muscles, I call them muscles, and start to build them again, and then start practice taking them out into the rest of the world, and just gets traction from there. So I think that's one of the reason coaches are so essential, is because it's a more neutral position that still gives you those tools, but then it just has this ripple effect out into the world once you start applying it through your life.
It affects your family. It affects everything, everybody that you come in contact with, because your behavior actually changes, doesn't it?
I mean, your behavior changes, and whether or not that just means that you have a healthier relationship with yourself. And that doesn't mean completely, ignoring what it is that they need or anything like that. But at the same time, sometimes also the new behaviors end up creating new levels of depth for the relationship, or even modeling different ways of being that they then realize are possible for them too. That's been my own experience. Once I went on the self-growth journey, became a life coach, all the education that comes with that, and modeled different ways of being, it was like not only all of a sudden was something else possible, not just for me, because am I special? Yes, but I'm not any more special than anybody else. And so it wasn't just something that I could do, it's something anybody can do. And seeing people in my family, women in my family, actually just from watching these behaviors start to grow and evolve in their own ways because it was modeled to them, because all of a sudden it was possible to them. That's been the most beautiful experience out of all of this for me.
And I have to just mention that when Rochelle came to me, and it was like a year and a half ago, that she started working with me, and she has changed so much. It is literally affecting everyone around her.
Yep.
Is that true, Rochelle?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's my relationship with myself has changed, like you said, Rebecca, and I think I looked more inward and I focused on myself. What are my boundaries? How do I respond? What am I teaching people around me how to treat me, how to treat each other? What am I teaching them to allow to happen while I am around, and things to be said? Because now people don't hang around me and talk about drama when it comes to other people, because they know that I'm going to tell them to stop. I saw this quote that says, if you're going to
Mm-hmm.
talk crap on someone's situation, um, either shut up or go help them. And I realized too, as I
Mm-hmm.
healed, that I wasn't the only one going through this, and I wasn't alone. And people all had these things in them, especially the surroundings I had, which were the exact opposite of what I wanted to be, which made it harder. But there was a higher progression in my learning since I was going through that. And it's like you said, Rebecca, it's just so much more meaningful when you don't have to say anything to somebody. You're not pushing or pulling them to change or to be better. You just do it for yourself. And then they realize, hey, this life for her seems
Mm-hmm.
to be a little bit better. Or, I want to have her in my life, and she set boundaries that make me have to also take care of myself so that I can be involved in her life. And it's without them consciously knowing. So it's really cool to just kind of, I'm not just watching myself, but everything around me that is also changing, and people. And it's really just a beautiful experience, and I'm seeing so much learning happen. And I have to have you agree with me, Rebecca, before we take off from the show, that it doesn't matter who you are, what you've been through, or what age you are, you can always decide to make a change, right?
Absolutely. Like, start where you are. Literally, that's just it. Not beating yourself up about the past, not thinking you should have seen something sooner or done something sooner. You are where you are, and that's not going to change. So just start where you are, and don't tell yourself that it needs to be any harder than it is. Will it be hard? Absolutely. It'll be hard. And at the same time, it's not going to get any easier if you just keep putting it off, or piling bricks of guilt on your shoulders, or shaming yourself because you're waiting longer and longer.
Exactly.
You are an amazing lady, and I want to thank you so much for being here today. We
Aw,
have
thank you
thoroughly
guys so
enjoyed our
much.
conversation. And you're going to have to come
Same here.
back, and we're going to have to talk more, because we're not done yet, but we are done because we're out of time. Is there anything that you would like to add to our audience before we go?
I mean, I'm just going to leave it with the one-liner that I almost always say, and that's just be kind to my friend. I think a lot of times we can forget to be kind to ourselves because it's us, right? And we're probably the hardest on ourselves than we are on anybody else. And so when we shift that perspective and we're kind to ourselves for somebody else, eventually, hopefully, it starts to catch on and we start being kind to ourselves out of default. So just be kind to my friend.
Amen.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And listen to the closing, folks, because I say every show. Well, you'll have to listen to it. And Rebecca Thomas has been our guest, and your website again is
marieofvenus.com.
I love the name of that website, marieofvenus.com. And everybody, you have a great day and listen to the closing. It's important. Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. That's kevin@kmmedia.pro. Oh. Hello. Hello.
Hi.
That's good.
StreamYard is changing stuff. I don't know what they did, but they're
Yeah,
changing stuff.
they're going to be updating it for a while, so we're going to have to just continuously get used to it. But thank you so much for that time, Rebecca, and your honesty and authenticity and your vulnerability. I think it's just so much easier to listen to somebody and understand a concept when there's not boundaries being set on it. And I also thought about that next time you come on the show. We'll have to talk about what it means to, well, maybe I don't even understand it yet, but I'm realizing that as you set boundaries, the boundaries change or they split up, or sometimes they just kind of go away because you set a boundary for yourself in a space where you were, and then that no longer is. So
Uh-huh.
there's a lot of learning happening in this 26-year-old, but I am
I
doing my
love
best.
it. I would, yeah, you're way further ahead than I was at 26. I'll tell you that.
Oh, good. Well, hopefully I'm where you are now when I'm your age.
So yeah, just real quick on that part. Do you guys know what a Newton's cradle is?
I've heard of that recently.
So it's like a tabletop game. It's not really a game. It's got like a solid platform, and then there's usually about 5 balls suspended on strings. And then you pull one of the balls back and you drop it, and it actually
Oh, yeah,
swings
yeah,
into
yeah.
the rest of the string. And then
Uh-huh.
it pushes them the other way, and then it keeps swinging till it finds its center again.
Yeah.
So when I talk about boundaries a lot of times, and a lot of things actually, but boundaries especially, I always
Uh-huh.
liken it to the Newton's cradle because I feel like when we're first setting, whether it's first learning how to set boundaries, it's this really wonky, like, am I doing it right? You screw it up, it's messy, who cares? At least you're
Yeah.
trying. But you're pulling back that first ball, right? Like that's setting that first boundary. And when you set the boundary and you let it go, like it's not just about setting the boundary. The more important part is reinforcing it because your boundaries are only as important as you make them. It's not up to everybody
Exactly.
else to enforce the boundary. It's up to the person that sets it. And so when that Newton's cradle, when those balls all swing to the other side, that's the person in the other side of the dynamic. That's the pushback that you get. And so it's just a really good visual representation of the process where it's like, okay, I swung the first boundary and then it went, and then I had to push it back, but then eventually it slows down and finds a new center, and then you start all over with something else. And so that's how I always talk about boundaries.
Beautiful. I that is going to help me more than you could possibly imagine. I am a very visual person.
Aww.
So I'm gonna
Uh-huh.
I'm just trying to come in touch with myself at certain points and be like, okay, do I feel like I'm swinging more this way or swinging more that way, or do I feel grounded with this decision? Because I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes it's hard to understand. So that's a good way to check in with myself and see if I'm too far one way or the other. Because it does get
Mm-hmm.
confusing. Like, okay, do I just need a different boundary then? And it's like, no, 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 no. You just have to adjust the one you set.
Yeah,
So
because it's usually going to be uncomfortable until it's your default. But at the same time, the other thing I would tell you, especially based on something you just said, is it's less cerebral and more feeling. It's less
yes.
figuring out and
Okay.
thinking and paying attention to like how your body responds to something, because that, just like an
Okay.
emotion, is
Yeah.
the flag saying, hey, it's just information. But your
Oh, okay.
body is going to give you a more intuitive, more honest, not
Yeah.
overthought, not overworked or over owned, even, because we can own things for other people. But that's going to take like a lot of the like trying to do it right out of your mind and just
Okay.
allow you to figure out like what feels right.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've started to be in touch with that more, but how you explained it will help me understand it enough. So I will.
Okay.
I'll keep doing that. When we have you back on the show, I'm I'm excited to
We
become a
can
whole
talk all
nother
about
soul
it.
again. Yes.
Aw.